Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. In our first story, the OP got into a situation where he was accused of assaulting a disabled person at work. Well, after a short pause, we'll tell you how it ended. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. My company was sued because of me. Last year, I worked as a seasonal cashier, usually in the outside lawn and garden, for a large home improvement store. This was about 2 months into the 6 months I was there. I was heading inside to take my 15 when I saw a customer struggling to put a large water fountain into the basket of one of the store's electric carts. I tell him to hold on and let me get someone to help him. I go to tell the cashier to page for a loader. When I walk back by him, he's still struggling to put it in his basket. Like a helpful employee, even though this box was twice my size, I try to help him. Before I know what's happened, he's fell down and this giant box is on top of the customer. Well, crap. I push it off of him and yell for the manager, who's about 30 feet away talking to another customer. He doesn't realize the customer has fell and takes an extra minute to end his first conversation and come over to where I am. We help the customer back into his scooter. A paramedic who happened to be there comes over and checks him over, and his wife comes over asking why he was getting a big water fountain and tells us that he's forever falling at home. No big deal. The manager ends up getting me to write a short summary of what happened in the instance that they sued. He told me not to worry, though it probably won't happen. Well, fast forward to about 2 months later. A woman from my company's legal department is calling me and asking me questions about it. Her. Did you push the customer? Me. What? No. Is he accusing me of pushing him? I would never push somebody. I was trying to help him. She confirmed that yes, he was indeed saying I pushed him. The call ended after a couple of more questions. After my shift was done, I went to the HR manager and asked if he was suing us because of me. He said yes and told me about how he was in the military and had mental problems from Agent Orange. I asked if my job would be in jeopardy because of the incident, and he said I had nothing to worry about. It was all being handled by the legal department, and they had a pretty strong case. When my seasonal position ended 3 months later, I was sitting in the office with the store manager and the HR manager. I asked how the court case was going, and they said nothing ever came of it, and he tried to sue them again because of a faulty refrigerator that had leaked water and ruined a floor in his newly remodeled home. They suspected him of being one of those people that went around trying to get money by suing people. And our second story. Once my CPU doesn't have a computer. Note, CPU is not a computer, CPU is a processor. A little backstory. I'd been saving up to buy some new parts for my PC, and the cheapest option for me was to order the CPU and motherboard I wanted separately, and the CPU came first due to delays. Anyway, my dad's girlfriend had to talk with one of her coworkers, so she invited her over. She brought her son with because he was too young to take care of himself for an hour or two. I was disappointed when I was assigned to entertain him for the time being, but overall I was fine with it. I take this kid, CB, to my room and we talk for a bit about video games. As I expected, he only plays games like Fortnite. He saw my PC and started talking about it. Whatever, right? He then asked how I got it, and I told him I bought it with money from a summer job. He really wanted to try playing games on a desktop because he'd only played on his Xbox his entire life. I let him play a couple of matches of Fortnite, which I don't play, just had it installed from when I tried it, and he was constantly blabbering about the crazy FPS I was getting, like 90 on medium settings. After he loses a game, he gets bored and just sits there. After a while, he looks up on top of my desk and sees the box for my new CPU, and this little kid points at it and goes, "Can I have that?" And I politely declined. He asked again, and I said no, a little more firm this time. He says, "Your computer's already really good. You don't need more." That's when I remembered that this kid didn't even have a PC. He starts whining and saying that it doesn't matter and I should give it to him anyway. I try to change the topic and offer to go ride some old bikes in the garage, but he just stomps off to his mom. Later, his mom comes in and asked, "So where's that laptop you said my son could have?" "I can pay you a little for being nice and letting him borrow it." I was really confused and asked her about it. She said CB told her that I was letting him borrow an old laptop, so I had to explain the entire situation. The mom calls in CB and asks about it. He tries to puppy eye his mom into forcing me to give him a non-existent laptop. I tell the kid, "Dude, you shouldn't lie to your parents to get something you want. It's not cool." And he just starts crying. He walks over to my desk screaming and tries to climb it and take the CPU, and his mom pulls him away. I explain the entire situation to his mom and how even if I gave him the CPU, he couldn't use it because he has an Xbox. The mom was really understanding. And the next time she came over, the kid wasn't with her. Thank God. At least the mother was responsible enough not to bring her son the next time she came over. And our next story. Enjoy waiting 10 extra minutes while I block you in. Yesterday, I was shopping at a pretty busy Walmart right after work with a girlfriend. We were getting a few cheap bar stools for our new apartment. Self-checkout was pretty packed, so I went to the 10 items or less line that only had 3 people in it. I noticed some commotion coming from the person in front of the old lady in front of me with the cashier. The cashier politely asked for this woman in her early 40s if she can go in one of the other lines that have way more counter space for ringing things up. I felt like that was a reasonable request because her cart was so full of food and clothing. I was surprised it wasn't falling out the sides. Well, this lady flat out refused, stating, "I waited my turn in line, you have to ring me up or I'm complaining to your manager." The cashier folded and started to ring up her items. Soon, the small counter space was filled up and so was the bagging area, but this woman's cart was still half full. She complained once more, scowling and saying, "Can't you hurry it up a bit? I need to beat rush hour traffic so I can make dinner in time for church." Ash Wednesday was yesterday when this happened. The cashier then says, "This would take less time if you went to the regular lanes where they have a bagger." At this point, the old lady in front of me just leaves the line to go to a different line to get her bananas. My girlfriend's getting annoyed at this point and wants to switch too, but I'm a pretty patient person. My girlfriend starts making passive-aggressive remarks loud enough for the lady in front to hear, but not to her face. Stuff along the lines of, "I hate those idiots who take hundreds of items to the express lane." You could tell this lady heard it because she started getting flustered. About 5 minutes later, she finally finished. After we'd finished packing up our car and heading to the exit, we saw that lady putting the last of her groceries in her minivan. I decided to slow to a stop in front of her car, blocking her in, and turn the car off. I told my girlfriend to be patient for a few minutes and winked that our battery had died. I hopped out of the car, popped the hood, and disconnected the battery. The lady starts honking like crazy, so I turned to her and just shrugged. She got out of her car yelling at me to move. I told her no can do, the car just died, won't start up. I pretended to call a tow truck and told her she'd have to wait 30 minutes for it to get there. This lady had a mental breakdown, started cussing me out, and eventually climbed back in her car. Around 10 minutes later, the people in the car in front of her got back and started unloading their groceries. She started honking and yelling at them to hurry up. Amazingly, this just made them go slower. They eventually finished and pulled out, and the rude lady was free to go. I reconnected the battery after she left and laughed about it with my girlfriend all the way home. And our last story. I removed a treehouse from my property. My grandparents died recently and I inherited their farm. I was really excited about this, getting the farm, not their deaths. I was actually really close with them. Because my husband and I, 27-year-old male and 24-year-old female, have been looking for a house near my new school. It's my first year as a middle school teacher, and this house holds sentimental value. Grandfather built it for grandmother as wedding present, and it's a huge property, literally hundreds of acres. A few subdivisions have been built nearby, including one directly adjacent to the farm. My husband and I were exploring our new property, which has quite a bit of wooded area, and we found a huge live oak tree with a treehouse in it. This was obviously done by an adult, not children, because the lumber was new, and it was really well built, even had an AC window unit and glass windows. My husband and I waited around to see if anyone showed up, and sure enough, a guy, mid to late 30s maybe, and a few kids show up. The guy immediately has an attitude and asks why we're on his property. My husband tells him that it's actually ours and that we have the papers to prove it. The guy tells the kids to go play and he starts freaking out because he thought that no one owned this property. So he doesn't understand how land works, he's trespassing, and he has an attitude. We tell him that he needs to leave because this is private property and we don't want to be held liable for any of his kids getting hurt on our property. He leaves, He was pissed, and we immediately called the sheriff's office to report the trespassing issue, and we called a contractor to have the treehouse removed. Like I said, I'm a teacher. I can't afford a liability lawsuit. A few days passed, the treehouse was removed, and the lumber was donated. And the guy shows up on our doorstep accusing us of stealing his Christmas gift to his son. I explained to him that because the treehouse was built on our property without our consent, that legally it was ours. He threatens to call the police, and I tell him to go for it because legally we're in the right. The police show up, and the guy ends up being really embarrassed because he was proven wrong and fined. I feel fine having the treehouse removed, but a few people from the subdivision have called our house phone, calling us kid haters and selfish monsters. Couldn't be farther from the truth. I'm a school teacher. I love kids. Legally, I'm in the right, but morally, I don't know. Edit. I did attempt to reach out to him, but he wouldn't answer his phone or his door. My husband dropped off the personal items, furniture, windows, AC window unit, etc. at his house. The parish, not county, we live in Louisiana, mailed him a notice that it was going to be removed, so he knew about it. The wife of the guy actually did reach out to apologize to me and my husband about her husband's actions. I'll be sending a batch of chocolate chip cookies to her tomorrow as an olive branch. We agreed with her that it's best not to involve the HOA because I don't want them to get ridiculous fines for breaking the contract that was drawn up with my grandparents about residents not trespassing. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.